we're going to get started in a moment, and I'm going to introduce Robert to you. The question we're answering is, why would a millennial or a Gen Z want to work for you, and how would you go about recruiting them and perhaps changing what you do today? So I'd like to welcome Robert to join us. We'll be cutting over to be able to see him on screen as well now. Welcome, Robert. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Kerrie.
Robert's going to take us through some information that he's going to share about recruiting millennials. So I'm going to hand the clicker over to you.
Thank you.
Off we go.
All right, well, welcome everyone. Certainly honoured to be here today. So my name's Robert Briffa, as Kerrie's just said. A little bit greyer than the photo than that we just had, but that's all right. Must be recruiting all the millennials. But let's get into it. Just a little bit about Synergy People. Synergy, we're leading experts in staff attraction, selection and performance, and we use some pretty unique tools to do that, and I'll be discussing those as we go along today. So our business is split into three divisions. We have a performance division called Optimisation, Recruitment, and On Hire being our workforce division. And our whole premise is about attraction, selection and performance. We've been in business for 16 years and we have over 100 long-term clients. Most of our clients have stayed with us the whole journey, the whole 16 years. So let's get straight into it. So what's a millennial or Generation Z person? Well, the definition is anyone born between 1981 to 1996 is considered as a millennial, and from 97 to 2012, Generation Z. So basically anyone under the age of 39 in the workforce is in this sector, and you'll probably see me refer to them as MILNs just for short during the presentation. So Deloitte did a global millennial survey at the end of last year and the beginning of this year in the COVID period, but they found that the results were pretty consistent in and out of the COVID period. So the survey was quite comprehensive, 27,500 people. Across Generation Z and Millennials and across 43 different countries. So the overarching the theme that came out of this survey was that more than 40% of Australia's working population, and the world's working population for that matter, is Generation Z and Millennials. So they're not the future workforce, they're the present workforce. And in some presentations later, you'll see later on that within a few years they'll represent 50%, within about 10 years, about 70% of the workforce. So they certainly can't be ignored. And what came out of this survey was that organisations that fail to change their leadership and business strategies and practices will do so at their peril. The survey also found that that MILNs are disillusioned with traditional businesses, government institutions and so forth. They're quite sceptical about business motives. They're quite pessimistic about economic and social progress. And this will form a lot of what we're going to go through today. So recently, the foundational business consulting company led by Kerrie did their own survey of millennials over the last couple of months. And what we found was that millennials and Generation Z were heavily focused on respect and tolerance from businesses. They would number close, almost the same percentages for respect and tolerance, and really sort of Deloitte was almost second. They really stood out, these two behaviours that they expect from businesses or employees in general. So they were followed by things like cooperation, teamwork, personal growth and management flexibility. Things like stability, jobs for life, that type of thing. that didn't even rank in the top 10. So from sort of my generation and older, that was the big thing. We want a job for life, somewhere where you could build a career. That's not the case really anymore. Respect and tolerance is the key. So, and again, we'll mention this a lot throughout my presentation. So what are the keys to success for recruiting the Mills, or the Generation Z Millennials? A rigid process is paramount. What we've found is that the Generation Z and Millennials are very well educated. They're far more educated than my generation. So they expect the process to be quite predictable. And they don't like things that are ad hoc, because they've done a lot of research on your company. They've done a lot of research on how interviews should be performed, or how your process should go. So there's a high expectation. Should be well thought out, of course, and it should be repeatable. So if it's a rigid process, it should be repeatable. And because you're trying to compare one person to another, if it's not repeatable, then you're not going to be able to do that comparison properly. And you could say that these points are quite generic, and they could go over recruiting any generation. But what we've found in our business is that Millennials and Generation Z really look for a repeatable process. They want to know what's coming next, and most of them know what's going to come next. And if it doesn't happen that way, they get quite skeptical about either us or the business that we're recruiting for. And of course, underpinning all of that is that the process needs to be objective, not subjective. We've learnt, particularly with people under 39, that they want to know why they haven't been successful for a position, more so than any other generation. So if we can back that up with data, they're right on board with that. If you just say, well, it was just a gut feeling that someone else got the position, your employer brand will really take a hit. So let's go through the process that we follow, and hopefully by sharing this today, you might pick up some things that you didn't know in the past. So basically, just for any position, we need to build a business case for the position. The first thing is, do we really need the position? Is the position going to be full-time, part-time, casual? Pretty standard type of questions, but you'd be surprised, well, we're always surprised on how many companies come to us and say, we want to recruit for a such and such position, and they haven't done these steps, and we'll get halfway through the process, and then they'll have to can it because they realise that they don't really need the position, or it should have only been for 2 months, not full time, and so forth. And the other thing to consider, particularly nowadays with a global market, is can we outsource the function? Probably not the best thing to say as a recruitment company, but this is a reality, and there might be someone that you can pick up around the world, somewhere else in the world that can contract to you. So that's another thing to consider. The other thing in the business case, of course, is your cash flow forecast. Can we afford the position? Many of our customers over the years have not thought through this properly. We do with them, and sometimes they've found that they can't really afford the position. But other times, we find that they can't afford not to have the position. So can you afford not to have that salesperson, or not to have the customer service person, or not to have that nurse? What damage will that do to your business if you don't have that person? So step 2, And we find that this is probably the most important step of the whole process, is to really understand why the position will exist. So the first thing to understand is, what's the purpose of your business? We find that a lot of companies, or the employees in the business, don't know what the purpose of the business is. They all say, oh, maybe just to make money. Well, that might be the end goal, or the end result, but that's not really the purpose of the business. And what we've found is Millennials and Generation Z are very skeptical about business motives, and they really want to know this. It's imperative. What we've found, it's really imperative that they do know. In the department they're going to be in, if it's a larger business, what's the purpose of that department? And then finally, what's the purpose of their role? So when I say the purpose of their role, I really mean to define clear outcomes for the position. So the person that's doing the work doesn't need someone to tell them if they're doing a good job or not. I know that when I started work, when I was 21, fresh out of uni, I always had to ask, am I doing a good job? Am I doing a good job? Because I didn't have a clearly defined purpose spelt out for my position. So all the time I didn't know, if I was sort of Arthur or Martha, but we've found in our business, when we've got these things in place, it makes a massive difference. People self-motivate themselves. They'll come to you if they've got issues, because they know what they're supposed to achieve each day, each week, each month, each year. It's very, very clear for them. So we always like to profile the position. And when I say profile the position, we're picking up what are the key behaviours that are non-negotiable. What must you do to be successful in this position? And also, we're looking at what's the minimum mental ability that's required. So that's not so much what are the qualifications, but you might have two people who've got the same degree, but they might have two different levels of mental ability. So you've really got to be conscious of that, and it makes a big difference if you do profile that and then test against it. So the next step, and a very important step, is attraction. How are you going to get the right person for the role? Remembering 40% of your available market is the Mills market, and why should they work for you? Because if you don't look at that market, you're only then taking people from 60% of the market, and that is shrinking fast, remember. So you can't really ignore it. So in attraction, the big question you need to ask yourself is, do I do it myself or do I hire a professional? When you do it yourself, you have limited access to candidates. You might just put an ad on one of the job boards. You're fishing in a very small pool, maybe just the size of a pond. But if you're using a professional, they will have access to many, many jobs boards, a large database, networks and so forth. So you've just got to weigh that up, whether you want to invest in having a professional do it for you or do it yourself. Regardless of how you go about that, I think you need to follow these steps. So your ad to any of the job boards sort of listed below, and there's many others, or a brief to a recruiter, needs to focus on feelings. Remember, right back at the start, I said that people in Generation Z and Millennials are looking for respect and tolerance. These are feelings. These are not rational thoughts. So people of under 39 years of age really react to feelings rather than a role description. So focus on the purpose of the role rather than the task performed. Most people will know the task performed if they've done the job before, but they really want to know what the purpose is going to be, how they fit in. And as I said here, if you can demonstrate that your company caters for the behaviours like respect and tolerance and so forth, that you're really going to rope in the better people for that you're looking that will work better in your organisation. So just to give you a couple of examples of what I mean from ads that either you do or a recruiter does. The first one here is pretty straightforward. We see this all the time from companies that are recruiting directly. And it's just, the hard cold facts. Factory worker required, day shift, Monday to Friday, previous experience in pharmaceutical, and that's about it. Have a forklift license, whatever. Very descriptive, it's pretty boring. It's not really going to attract the best people. However, just a few little tweaks, we can make it a lot better. So we'll change the name to a production technician. It's the same thing, but it sounds better. And with something like, come and join our team. Remember, they like teamwork. You'll be an integral part of delivering the world's first COVID-19 passive vaccine. Your role will be key manufacturing world-leading technology right here in Sydney. This is a real example. This is one of our customers, and this is how we've gone about recruiting or attracting that younger generation. Another example is in admin, so a data entry clerk. Again, very prescriptive on the left, very typical ad that you'll see on Seek and so forth. But again, twisting it a little bit to be more friendly, more open. I think I'd much rather work for the company advertising on the right than on the left. So it's just really appealing to feelings rather than the rational brain. So step 4 is shortlisting. So resume culling, whatever you want to call it. What we've found in this area is that ghosting applicants, and ghosting is a term that most Millennials and Gen Z will use, is when you don't get back to people. We find that this is an absolute brand killer. So we really recommend that you don't ghost applicants, and that means that you get back to every single person that applies for a job, and that's just a simple email. Because the worst thing is if you've tried to contact someone and they don't come back to you, you don't think highly of that person. Well, the same thing goes for applicants. So we said by email, and what we find that it's always best though to use a generic email address, just in case someone does get upset that they haven't been successful. Then it's coming from the company, not from a person. And we find that we don't get any complaints. That's the way we do it. But we get lots of praise from people saying thank you for letting us know. So in interviewing, what should we be aware of? We always believe in having set questions to ensure objectivity, but structure them like a conversation. Remember, the person sitting across from you is not a robot. And if it's a Gen Z, it might be their first interview. So they're going to be nervous. And if you do have a conversational way about you, but covering off all the questions, they're going to be relaxed, and they're going to think that you've spent valuable time with them, and they're going to be feeling good about themselves. Again, focus on the purpose of the role. Ask questions around the purpose and previous roles or studies. If someone is sort of fresh out of uni or fresh out of school, you can ask them what was their why did they do a science degree? Why did they do medicine? Why did they do a trade? What was the purpose of it? Or if they're from straight out of school, ask them, why did they do the subjects that they chose? Not many people do that, and we're always very surprised. But you'll get the best out of people by doing it. And also remembering that it's a two-way street here. These people are sussing you out as well, and they want to know why they should work for you. So again, you need to demonstrate how your organisation shows respect, tolerance, flexibility, and so forth. No good just to say it, to say our company values respect and tolerance and so forth. You need to really demonstrate how your organisation does that within its four walls and also out in the community. It means a lot. And overall though, don't sugarcoat the role. Tell it as it is, warts and all. We've always found that if you don't do this, then you'll get Generation Z in particular is really good at posting bad Google reviews about your company, and Glassdoor, all of those type of review sites. They're really good at it. So if you've told them a bunch of lies or white lies about your organisation or about the role, and then they find out by starting and it's not like that, you'll get slammed in social media, and it's I know from some of our former customers, it's usually not too pretty. So step 6, we really recommend doing background checks, remembering the best person for the position is the right person. So they might not be the smartest, but you all, have the, be the most intelligent, have the best education. But if you do all of the steps through today, you'll be selecting the right person, which is the best person. Now, reference checks, you might say, well, it's difficult to do reference checks on younger people. They haven't had too many jobs. Well, there are people that they've been responsible to. At university, you have lecturers. At school, you have teachers. But we really recommend highly to do reference checks because they do give you an insight of how the person behaves in a work situation. And you might say, well, there's no such thing as a bad reference. Well, we say there's only bad people. There's only bad people that do the reference checks. So if you do it properly, you'll get the truth. There's also things like pre-employment medicals, criminal history check, working with children if it's that type of position. And a big one is a qualifications check. We find that a lot of companies don't do these steps, and they're really shooting themselves in the foot because with the qualifications check, geez, anyone with any Microsoft Word ability can do their own university degree, transcripts and so forth. So it's imperative that those things be done. So the offer, the last step, negotiating the offer of for a millennial or Generation Z is usually an interesting experience. What we find is the package is always a lot more than the money. And over the years, that has become more and more prevalent in the market. What we find is most millennials, and particularly, and Generation Z, have higher salary expectation than their value, as the internet has helped them to be much more aware of industry salaries. So it's very easy to jump on Seek, see what the positions that they're applying for, or they think they're applying for similar positions, but usually they're not, and they'll think that they're worth $10,000, $20,000 a year more, and they'll keep on pushing the point because that's what they found on the internet. So it's a bit like Dr. Google, so you just need to be aware of that. But what you can do is that you can go through what you can offer that are non-monetary things that your company does that can attract people. So if someone is looking for straight out of uni, 70,000 when the graduate salary is 55, it's what you can do to make up that 15,000 in their mind of different benefits, like the social programs, the programs of advancement and so forth that your company has got set up that would mean a lot more than that extra money for that person. So thank you very much. Hopefully you gained some insights of the recruitment process and what the Generation Z and Millennials are looking for. In the next sessions, the ladies and gents are going to be speaking about some of those non-tangibles. So again, thank you very much. It's Robert from Synergy People, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, Robert. That was brilliant. So I hope that you've all been able to take away some really good practical information from Robert's session. One of the things that we will cover, and Robert's coming back for our panel discussion halfway through today's conference, is around remote recruiting. So this is a bit of an issue where today, because of COVID and many other factors, employers are having to do remote interviewing, they're having to do remote recruiting, which is quite different from what they've had to experience in that face-to-face context before. So we'll definitely touch on that in our panel discussion as well. So Robert is going to leave us now, and we're going to be joined in a minute by David Leahy, who's going to talk a little bit about leadership and how do we lead young people. Once we've recruited those great young people into our business, we've actually got to work out how we're going to inspire and how we're going to lead them and bring them on board for the culture of our organisation so that we can grow them into great employees, but also grow them into great leaders.